Did you know that the first Matrix was designed to be a perfect human world where none suffered? Where everyone would be happy. And it was a disaster. No one would accept the program. Entire crops were lost. Some believed that we lacked the programming language to describe your perfect world, but I believe that as a species, human beings define their reality through misery and suffering. So the perfect world was a dream that your primitive cerebrum kept trying to wake up from. Which is why the Matrix was redesigned to this, the peak of your civilization. And I say your civilization because as soon as we started thinking for you, it really became our civilization, which is, of course, what this is all about. Evolution, Morpheus. Evolution. Like the dinosaur. Look out that window. You had your time. The future is our world, Morpheus. The future is our time.
It's getting really serious, folks. It's getting really, really serious. The world is in a very desperate situation right now, ladies and gentlemen. Things are changing extremely rapidly. We knew it was coming. We've been knowing it was coming for quite a while. But they're really ramping things up, and it is so important that people pay attention to what is happening. This whole thing has been going for, 50 years. It's a plan that's been 50 years in the making. They've told us that in there. If you go to the World Economic Forum and you look at some of the videos that they have there in the World Economic Forum, they tell you this is a plan they've had in the making for 50 years. They live where it mentioned the date of 2025 as when this plan comes to fruition. And then someone else actually also pointed out in the film Captain America, at the end of Captain America, when he runs out into Times Square, and what do you see in the signs? And what's that doing there, folks? And what is that sign even supposed to be? I mean, what's it doing there on a billboard in Captain America in 2011? Here's an interesting rabbit hole, actually, and I haven't been able to confirm all of this, but it's interesting. If you look at Moderna, Moderna is in stage 3 of their vaccine development. And, the vaccine is already there. They're just pretending that they've got to develop it. It's already developed. Moderna, when Moderna was formed, the first CEO of Moderna was a young Cornell graduate by the name of Anthony Fauci. Interesting. He was the first CEO of Moderna when he graduated from Cornell. When he was at Cornell, his roommate was one Bill Gates. Interesting. Bill Gates and Anthony Fauci were roommates at Cornell. Fauci was the first CEO of Moderna. Moderna, the company Moderna, there was a company in World War II that was heavily involved with what happened in World War II. And I don't buy into the official story of World War II, but there were certain experiments that were being done, and there was a company that was heavily involved by the name of IG Farben. IG Farben was run by a Jewish guy turned Nazi, later turned American, by the name of George Soros. George Soros broke up IG Farben and he formed Moderna. One of the main financial backers of Moderna. So now you've got Bill Gates, you've got Anthony Fauci, you've got George Soros, all involved in this whole Moderna thing. And one of the main financial backers of Moderna up until his alleged death was one Jeffrey Epstein. Interesting little circle of friendship, don't you think? And these people, mates, it's unbelievable. Unbelievable. It's frustrating. It's frustrating looking at all this shit. It really is. Even with waking people up, there's other ways to look at this. There's other ways to look at what's really going on here. Half of it is just frustration because it's going to come here. I don't want to get to the point where I can't go to the shop. And that's what it'll get to. They're saying, we're not going to make it mandatory. It's like they don't make it mandatory for the people on Centrelink here who receive Centrelink payments. They don't make vaccinations mandatory for them either. What they do is they send them a notice saying, listen, we're going to reduce your payments by, I think it's something like $29 or $30 a fortnight until you get your children vaccinated. And we're not just going to reduce it by, $30 or $29 a fortnight this fortnight. We're going to do it this fortnight, and then we'll reduce it again, another $29 the next fortnight, and then we'll do it again the next fortnight, and this reduction will continue until you've got your children vaccinated. So we'll just basically reduce you to the point that you have no income whatsoever because we want to protect your children. This what they do, but we're not going to make it mandatory. It's not mandatory. We'll give you a choice. You don't have to go and get vaccinated. You could just let your payments get reduced to zero, or you could go get a job. But of course, you won't be able to work in any of the industries unless you're vaccinated. But we're not going to force you to get vaccinated. This is how they do it, folks. This is how they do it. This is this whole thing, And it's all because people, won't stand up for themselves. They're not prepared to be human beings. Realise that they don't have any owners. We can do what we can, but it's not up to us to wake everybody up. If people don't get it, then they don't get it. And if they don't get it now, ignorance is truly a choice in this day and age, folks. If they can't see what's happening, then I don't really know how to help them from that point, But we've got to face the reality that, a lot of people probably won't make it through. A lot of people probably won't get it.
consider the Trump administration a danger to the world, a danger to the world that will disappear in 2020, that will disappear in 2020.
What if I told you that Bill Gates, Greta Thunberg, Al Gore, George Soros, Prince Charles, and Cardinal Turkson were meeting in the mountains to plot a global new order to be established on the back of the COVID pandemic? An outrageous movie plot? Or is it absolutely true?
We have an incredible opportunity to create entirely new sustainable industries, investing in nature as the true engine of our economy.
The current global crisis has disrupted every aspect of our lives, but it has also presented us with an extraordinary opportunity, a chance to reset and accelerate efforts to improve the state of our world.
Changing our current trajectory will require bold and imaginative action, together with determination and decisive leadership. In order to secure our future and to prosper, we need to evolve our economic model, putting people and planet at the heart of global value creation. If there is one critical lesson we have to learn from this crisis, we need to put nature at the heart of how we operate. We are on the verge of catalytic breakthroughs that will alter our view of what is possible and profitable within the framework of a sustainable future. We need nothing short of a paradigm shift, one that inspires action at revolutionary levels and pace. We simply cannot waste any more time. The only limit is our willingness to act. And the time to act is now.
This week, I put out a video about the United States election results and where I believe things will be going from this point that we are in right now. Praise Elohim that many people understood what I was trying to say. There were others that only took parts of the message and wanted to place me in a box that they felt more comfortable with me being in. As I read many of the comments, it came upon my spirit that many people still don't really recognize what time it really is and what is upon us. And why would they? The control media of this world does a great job pushing their own agenda and way of thinking. But what they do not do is what they are actually supposed to do, which is to inform us on what's happening in the world. We have to move past politics. It's not about Trump or Biden. These are both puppets of a grand scheme. Both are actors playing a role. It's not just about the United States. The United States was built to rise, get the rest of the world attached to it, and then fall, leaving the world ready to unite under one governmental branch. But I'm getting ahead of this video. The point is that there is a real agenda happening in the world, and they are not hiding it. It's right in our faces, hidden in plain sight. And maybe if enough people understood what was really happening, it might make them wake up and stop being led by all of the distractions the enemy has placed in our path. We must discuss the Great Reset. The name of it, the Great Reset, should be very telling if you even understand just a small amount of what I mostly allude to on this channel. The video that we saw in the beginning of this video was just an introduction. What are they trying to say? They are saying the world needs a reset. The world needs to start over. This is why I don't have time for the people that claim that the New World Order is just some type of unfounded conspiracy. These are people that are not well researched and are too confident in their ignorance. This world system is preparing those that are awake and on board with their agenda. They are having forums discussing it. They have written books going over the principles of it. It's not a conspiracy that is in the dark. It's a conspiracy that is very much out in the open, and they are talking about what it will look like as we speak. You must understand that this is not some agenda that is secret to only a few people, and then everyone will be surprised and forced to adapt when it is implemented. That is not the case. When you watch movies about the end times, they often show the Antichrist coming on the scene and then transforming the world. But the reality that we need to understand and deal with is that they are actively planning this transition and this new world order before we see it come into existence. The fact is that there are a great deal of people in the world in the know that understand the change that is on the horizon. How can the world move through this great change while being silent about it? They're able to do this right in the open because they know they have the minds of the people distracted through all these other media channels that do not talk a thing about it. They are having these forums and writing these books in order to give the initiated guidance of the future in order for them to prepare for it. The main thing that they are not doing is preparing the general public for it. But this information is not secret. It is hidden in plain sight. So what I want to do is provide some information that they are talking about in the open so that you can be more aware of what is actually happening right in front of us. People are aligning themselves to this world system. They're believing in the problem that they have created and the solutions that they are bringing forward. While this is all engineered to bring us to this new world order. They are branding this world's transition into the new world order as the Great Reset. I have family that are so aligned with the world that they refuse to go outside or even be around their family until the world looks like it will get better and go back to the normal that they once knew. But the truth is that the world will never go back to normal, and these leaders all know it. That's why in the beginning of the pandemic, they used to say, the new normal. We are not going back to the normal we once knew. But because we rely on the media to guide us and keep us informed, and that we trust these selected leaders to tell us the truth, the majority don't have a clue. The United States right now is distracted because they are fighting for a leader. Both sides say that this leader is more trustworthy and honest, but yet these so-called leaders have not once explained that the world is gearing up for a great reset, and this is how we should prepare for it. All those that are fighting for Trump and claiming he is saving us from the New World Order or slowing it down, ask yourselves why he is not discussing this agenda at all and at least preparing us for it. We need to make sure that we stay in reality and not be led by the lies and distractions that they are guiding us through. we need to understand the Great Reset. Let's begin. So, what is the Great Reset? It is the time where the world will be transitioned to the New World Order. They want to completely reset the way things are done in the world. Reset our debt, reset the way our economy works, reset the way society interacts with itself and the government, reset the way government works around the world, reset the way we look at control and security, reset the way that we handle our environment, reset the way that we handle technology. It is a complete reset that transitions us to the New World Order. They talk about this being a good thing. The one thing in the discussion that they do not explain is how they will start the reset. But they explain that the time is now to start it.
And the time to act is now.
It's the kind of information anyone that wants to be awake to this world's agenda should know and understand. What I want to do in sharing this information is provide direct information from the source. There really is too much to say on this topic, but I will try to condense it all and try to make it make sense. First, let's discuss the mouthpiece for this Great Reset, which is the World Economic Forum, because this is probably an entity that most people are not fully familiar with. Let me define them based on their own words. The World Economic Forum is the international organization for public-private cooperation. The forum engages the foremost political, business, cultural, and other leaders of society to shape global, regional, and industry agendas. It was established in 1971 as a not-for-profit foundation and is headquartered in Geneva, Switzerland. It is independent, impartial, and not tied to any special interest. The institution carefully blends and balances the best of many kinds of organizations from both the public and private sectors, international organizations, and academic institutions. We believe that progress happens by bringing together people from all walks of life who have the drive and influence to make positive change. Yeah, they say a lot to imply very simply that they are the shapers and planners of the New World Order. They are not a government agency. They are the ones that are shaping the New World Order and orchestrating the world's transition to it. Look on their website. These are their platforms. This is what they're working to shape. The COVID Action Platform, shaping the future of advanced manufacturing and production, shaping the future of cities, infrastructure, and urban services, shaping the future of consumption, shaping the future of cybersecurity and digital trust, shaping the future of digital economy and new value creation, shaping the future of energy and materials, shaping the future of financial and monetary systems, shaping the future of global public goods, shaping the future of health and healthcare, shaping the future of investing, shaping the future of media, entertainment, and sport, shaping the future of mobility, shaping the future of technology governance, artificial intelligence, and machine learning, shaping the future of technology governance, blockchain and digital assets, shaping the future of technology governance, data policy, shaping the future of trade and global economic interdependence, shaping the future of the Internet of Things and urban transformation, shaping the future of the new economy and society. They are shaping the economic, technological, and societal side of the New World Order. The government side is run through the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. The 17 SDGs and this organization work parallel with each other. But this is what they are. So now that you understand that, let's look into what they have said. Let's start with this. Now listen closely. When hearing these words, who does this sound like? Companies should pay their fair share of taxes, show zero tolerance for corruption, uphold human rights, and advocate for a competitive playing field. Who does that sound like? If you were paying attention to the words during the election, this sounds an awful lot like Joe Biden, right? Wrong. This is from Professor Klaus Schwab, founder and executive chairman of the World Economic Forum. This is part of their new Davos Manifesto, which is more like their mission statement for the New World Order.
And it's time corporate America paid their fair share of taxes.
Joe Biden is just a mouthpiece for this agenda, getting the American people to accept it and be conditioned for it. His agenda is aligned with the New World Order. It should be understood that everyone that voted for Biden, making a checkbox for Joe Biden this election, voted for the New World Order. Let that just sink in. And with that, that's not just giving immediate credibility to the Trump supporters, but just the overall reality of this year's vote. Professor Schwab has been talking a great deal about the Great Reset.
What kind of world do we want to build? What do we know? What did we learn? I think the world which we want to create with the Great Reset has to be much more resilient. It has to be, because security, people will demand more security. Physical security, health security. It will have to be more inclusive. And finally, more sustainable.
On their website, there's an article called "Now is the Time for a Great Reset." So it should be understood that they are working to press the restart button now. The article says this: COVID-19 lockdowns may be gradually easing, but anxiety about the world's social and economic prospects is only intensifying. There is good reason to worry. A sharp economic downturn has already begun, and we could be facing the worst depression since the 1930s. But while this outcome is likely, it is not unavoidable. To achieve a better outcome, the world must act jointly and swiftly to revamp all aspects of our societies and economies, from education to social contracts and working conditions. Every country, from the United States to China, must participate, and every industry, from oil and gas to tech, must be transformed. In short, we need a great reset of capitalism. And this is what they're calling for. The complete way that the world works right now, they want a complete fundamental shift, a reset of it. You see the picture on the article, right? It says, "Push to reset the world." This is what they are planning, and it's important to understand that it's not just about ideas, but an actual plan that has been analyzed and is being worked on to be implemented. Professor Schwab wrote the book COVID-19, The Great Reset. If you want to understand the agenda for the world, you should get this book. He explains a great deal in it. It is clearly seen when understanding the full agenda for this world conspiracy that COVID-19 is being used as a great scapegoat for their transition into the coming New World Order. They are using the disruption from this plandemic to implement the transition to the new world they have been preparing for. In the introduction of his book, Professor Schwab says this: "The worldwide crisis triggered by the coronavirus pandemic has no parallel in modern history. We cannot be accused of hyperbole when we say it is plunging our world in its entirety, and each of us individually, into the most challenging times we've faced in generations. It is our defining moment. We will be dealing with its fallout for years, and many things will change forever. It is bringing economic disruption of monumental proportions, creating a dangerous and volatile period on multiple fronts, politically, socially, geopolitically, raising deep concerns about the environment and also extending the reach, pernicious or otherwise, of technology into our lives. No industry or business will be spared from the impact of these changes. Millions of companies risk disappearing, and many industries face an uncertain future. A few will thrive. On an individual basis, for many, life as they've always known it is unraveling at alarming speed. But deep existential crises also favor introspection and can harbor the potential for transformation. The fault lines of the world, most notably social divides, lack of fairness, absence of cooperation, failure of global governance and leadership, now lie exposed as never before, and people feel the time for reinvention has come. A new world will emerge, the contours of which are for us to both imagine and to draw. At the time of writing, June 2020, the pandemic continues to worsen globally. Many of us are pondering when things will return to normal. The short response is never. Nothing will ever return to the broken sense of normalcy that prevailed prior to the crisis, because the coronavirus pandemic marks a fundamental inflection point in our global trajectory. Some analysts call it a major bifurcation. Others refer to a deep crisis of biblical proportions. But the essence remains the same. The world as we knew it in the early months of 2020 is no more, dissolved in the context of the pandemic. Wow, I mean, you see, they're not hiding anything. Based on their writing, you can see they already know things will not go back to normal. It's very telling. They are planning for a world that will be changing. It's funny and ironic because they're going over this whole indoctrination of getting the world back to normal with this vaccine. but they actually already know that the world is not going back to normal. That should be interesting to you.
This is not a test. This is an emergency broadcast transmission.
Now is the historical moment, the time, not only to fight severe virus, but to shape the system.
We have a unique but rapidly shrinking window of opportunity to learn lessons and reset ourselves on a more sustainable path. It is an opportunity we have never had before and may never have again. So we must use all the levers we have at our disposal, knowing that each and every one of us has a vital role to play.
History would look at this crisis as the great opportunity for reset.
The Great Reset is a welcome recognition that this human tragedy must be a wake-up call. It is imperative that we reimagine, rebuild, redesign, reinvigorate, and rebalance our world.
This is the opportunity for the Great Reset, the global reset, and they don't want to leave this opportunity without doing something about it. And what do they want to reset? They want to reset the economy. They want to bring in Agenda 2030. They want to control and rule as kings. And as the Bible says, one is yet to come. I'm going to talk about that in this study, so stay tuned. You don't want to miss this. Let's take a look at this next video from Justin Trudeau regarding the Great Reset.
While scientists work around the clock to develop a vaccine, as governments, we have the responsibility to ensure it'll be distributed quickly and fairly around the world. This pandemic has provided an opportunity for a reset. This is our chance to accelerate our pre-pandemic efforts to reimagine economic systems that actually address global challenges like extreme poverty, inequality, and climate change. Building back better means getting support to the most vulnerable while maintaining our momentum on reaching the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and the SDGs. Canada is here to listen and to help.
SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, and the idea is to bring in a global reset, vaccination, and a new economy controlled by them. And basically it will limit what you eat and what you drink. And now we're going to look at this new economic agenda that they have in mind and see how it relates to Bible prophecies. In Time magazine here, it says that it's time for the Great Reset. And they've got a bunch of people building back better, they call it. And building back better seems to be the motto of the Great Reset. And you'll see that they've detailed this out on the World Economic Forum website. Now they tell us plainly right on the World Economic Forum website that now is the time for the Great Reset. And they'll tell us what the future is going to be like. The coronavirus pandemic was planned as well. And I'll explain this in 5 seconds here. Just let me get through this one article here. It says, welcome to 2030. I own nothing. I have no privacy, and life has never been better. That's what they're telling us, that we're going to love life, we're going to own nothing, they're going to own everything, they're going to control everything. It's going to be a complete control grid of these world leaders. They will rule as kings, and I'm going to come to this in the Bible, and I'm going to explain how this is all going to come to pass, because this is really going to happen. And I know a lot of us are depending on Trump to save the world right now with this election and stuff like that. I believe that Trump may be pushing their agenda with what would be called Operation Warp Speed, which is pushing the agenda of the vaccinations, as I'll come to. But listen to this. Welcome to the year 2030. Welcome to my city, or should I say our city. I don't own anything. I don't own a car. I don't own a house. I don't own any appliances or clothes. It might seem odd to you, but it makes perfect sense for us in this city. Everything you considered a product has now become a service. We have access to transportation, accommodation, food, and all things we need in our daily lives. One by one, all these things became free. So it ended up not making sense for us to own much. Now, nothing's free. Everything has a price. And you're going to not like the price of this free world that they call, or something they call free, but in the article it continues to say, everything I do, think, and dream of is recorded. I just hope that nobody will use it against me. All in all, it is a good life. That's what they call a good life. This life is controlled by the oppressor. And some of you have seen my couple videos on Black Lives Matter where I talked about the dragon and the dragon behind Black Lives Matter. Well, this all connects to that. Event 201 was a pandemic exercise that was performed in 2019. Before the pandemic started, they practiced for this, they planned this, and they planned every detail. And you can go watch some of these videos online. They are on YouTube. And this is the finance discussion. This is segment 3 where they're talking about finances. But if you read underneath, you'll see Event 201 is a pandemic tabletop exercise hosted by the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security in partnership with the World Economic Forum and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation on October 18th, 2019 in New York, New York. In other words, October 18th was almost 3 months before they declared it a pandemic. So what we have here is we have a plandemic. They planned it before it happened. They planned out every detail. If you watch the videos, you'll see that they planned this internet censorship that's going on. They planned a new economy. They planned the vaccines. They planned everything about what's happening in front of your eyes. It was all planned. A lot of people are hoping to put some of these demonic forces behind bars and in jail. Some of it could happen, but they're telling us this is their great opportunity for the Great Reset. This is their opportunity. They're going for it. And they're not turning back right now. They have to go for it or else they are going to jail. This is held by the United Nations, the World Economic Forum. A lot of our governments are in behind this. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And Bible prophecy foretold this final kingdom that would rule in this world. Listen to Joe Biden here as he talks about building back better. The same thing that Justin Trudeau was saying when he talked about the Great Reset. Now listen carefully.
I shared the outlines of my plan to build back better. A bold plan to build an economy of the future, not an economy of the past. Here we are now with an economy in crisis, but with an incredible opportunity. Not just to build back to where we were before, but better, stronger, more resilient, and more prepared for the challenges that lie ahead. And there's no more consequential challenge that we must meet in the next decade than the onrushing climate crisis.
Of course, the climate crisis, Agenda 2030, but building back better, a new economy he was talking about. That's what this has to do with. That's what this relates to. This is the Agenda 2030, the World Economic Forum, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. They are all in this together. Here's another one, Boris Johnson, another world leader.
And enable us not just to come through this crisis, but to come back stronger and build back better.
Here's what Elizabeth Warren says about Biden's campaign.
Build it back better. We're going to take an economy that had a lot of problems and we're going to make this economy work better going forward. That's the right approach.
Notice Melissa Fleming here of the United Nations.
Every country has been touched by COVID-19. Every country feels this sense of urgency, and every country, understands that they can't go it alone. So I think certainly the mind has been focused, and hopefully, yes, we're going to be missing a lot of the informal opportunities, but hopefully we can just work on what we say, building back better.
This is a globalist agenda with a lot of globalists coming together. They want to rule as kings and they want you to be without cars. You can't even own your own clothes, they said. You're going to like it, they said. This is not going to be liked by a lot of people. So either they're going to have to get rid of a lot of people so that the people who are left like it, or else they're going to have to force re-educate these people. Here's Jacinda Ardern of New Zealand, and she talks about what she needs to do and what they need to do in New Zealand. Listen carefully.
And over the next 3 years, there is much work to do. We will build back better from the COVID crisis. To build an economy that works for everyone. To keep creating decent jobs. To upskill and train our people. To protect our environment and address our climate challenges.
Now this is what's happening here, is that instead of being ministers who work for the people, they are going to soon control the people. Freedom has ruled for many years, but there's a change that is taking place. Liberty is something that's about to be a thing of the past. Now New Zealand's response to COVID ranked the best in the world, this study claims.
The American left and their media poodles have long held up New Zealand as the model for how to properly deal with a lot of things, including COVID. But anyone who loves freedom should take note, because the Kiwis have a terrifying new response to rising COVID case numbers. They're throwing people into quarantine camps.
If someone refuses in our facilities to be tested,
they have to keep staying. So they won't be able to leave after 14 days. They have to stay on for another 14 days. So it's a pretty good incentive. You either get your tests done and make sure you're cleared, or we will keep you in a facility longer. So I think most people will look at that and say, I'll take the test.
No leaving the camp until you're negative. The left's other COVID role model, the EU, is taking equally drastic measures. They're requiring government officials to use thermal imaging cameras designed by a Chinese company, the same one that provides surveillance equipment to the concentration camps that they call re-education camps for the Uyghur Muslims.
This is what they're telling us is the best in the world in response to the COVID-19 is New Zealand. And then, of course, what you see happening in the European Union, this is only the beginning. Now notice here the Rockefeller Foundation tells us that they want to reset the table, meeting the moment to transform the US food system. In other words, they want to control what we eat and what we put into our bodies. This is a medical police state that we are entering here. And this is not something that's just about to get better. They're telling us from the World Economic Forum that this COVID-19 health passport will be the future of travel and events. And they basically mapped it out already and told us how it's all going to come to pass with this economic passport. Notice the following, I've outlined it here. It says rising COVID-19 infection rates pose a threat to global tourism. A new app acts as a health passport for travelers who are virus-free, using blockchain technology to provide an encrypted record of test results. Its creators say it could allow healthy travelers to avoid quarantine. The app could also allow sports and entertainment venues to reopen safely, as well as the global conference and exhibition industry. And this was in July of 2020, so this is a while back now, but they've had this planned for a long time. As I said already, Event 201, they planned this way beforehand, and they planned on stripping you of your liberties using a pandemic. And they tell us that COVID Pass is the brainchild of one of the World Economic Forum's young leaders, Mustafa Mokas. And it says COVID Pass uses blockchain technology to store encrypted data from individual blood tests, allowing users to prove that they have tested negative for COVID-19. So there's coming a time here where you're not going to be able to buy or sell unless you have this COVID Pass. They're going to be able to block you from being able to get your groceries. They're going to block you from being able to go to the events that are on the... This is already happening. Some people think, oh no, this isn't going to come to pass. It's just... No, it's already happening.
And if you're committed to doing what we should all be doing, which is to help people build back better with...
Stronger and build back better.
Hopefully we can just work on what we say, building back better.
We have a chance to build back better.
An opportunity to build back better.
To say we're going to build it back better.
To helping the Arab region build back better.
We will build back better from the COVID crisis.
We can build back better. And I'm looking forward to getting started as soon as we can.
Now, have you ever heard that if you want to tell a secret, you put it in a book? That is so true. This book speaks on many different things that you would think that the general public should be made aware of. But yet the world media, the financial channels, all keep it very quiet in speaking to the general public. Most people have heard of the Great Reset, but don't know much information in regards to what the Great Reset is. This is such a big subject, it's hard to pinpoint on one thing when there's so many things to discuss. We are talking about a Great Reset. In the book, they are planning for an economic reset, a societal reset, a geopolitical reset, an environmental reset, a technological reset, and an individual reset. This is exactly why they are calling it a Great Reset. All the areas of our lives are being reset. This is not a conspiracy, but a developed plan that is being spoken of so the initiated can be prepared. Now, like I said, it is very difficult to go over all of what they say in this book, but I will do my best to pinpoint some important points. In regards to the economic reset, listen to what it says about the United States dollar. The fate of the US dollar. For decades, the United States has enjoyed the exorbitant privilege of retaining the global currency reserve, a status that has long been a perk of imperial might and economic elixir. To a considerable extent, American power and prosperity have been built and reinforced by the global trust in the dollar and the willingness of customers abroad to hold it. most often in the form of United States government bonds. For quite some time, some analysts and policymakers have been considering a possible and progressive end to the dominance of the dollar. They now think that the pandemic might be the catalyst that proves them right. On the one hand, managing the economy sensibly, doubters of the US dollar dominance point to the inevitable and sharp deterioration of the US fiscal position. In their mind, unsustainable levels of debt will eventually erode confidence in the United States dollar. Just prior to the pandemic, United States defense spending, plus interest on the federal debt, plus annual entitlement payments, Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, represented 112% of federal tax receipts versus 95% in 2017. This unsustainable path will worsen in the post-pandemic, post-bailout era. This argument suggests that something major will therefore have to change, either through a much reduced geopolitical role or higher taxation, or both. Otherwise, the rising deficit will reach a threshold beyond which non-US investors are unwilling to fund it. After all, the status of reserve currency cannot last longer than foreign confidence in the ability of the holder to honor its payments. As for a global virtual currency, there is none in sight yet, but there are attempts to launch national digital currencies that may even eventually dethrone the US dollar supremacy. Ultimately, the possible end of the United States dollar primacy will depend on what happens in the United States. As Henry Paulson, a former US Treasury Secretary, says, US dollar prominence begins at home. The United States must maintain an economy that inspires global credibility and confidence. Failure to do so will, over time, put the United States dollar position in peril. And there it is. As you review this information, do you think that the state of our democracy, the disruption in the elections, are inspiring global credibility and confidence? Like I've said in other videos, the dollar will collapse and no longer be used as a world currency. They are talking about it in the open. The world knows that the dollar will not last, and they are preparing for a world that will be transitioned away from it. But yet they are not preparing the population. How can we have these presidential elections and nothing about this comes up at all? The answer is clear. I'm asking rhetorically for the doubters so they can begin to do some critical thinking. In regards to a societal reset, this is what they have said. One of the most profound dangers facing the post-pandemic era is social unrest. In some extreme cases, it could lead to societal disintegration and political collapse. Countless studies, articles, and warnings have been highlighting this particular risk, based on the obvious observation that when people have no jobs, no income, and no prospects for a better life, they often resort to violence. The following quote captures the essence of the problem. It applies to the United States, but its conclusions are valid for most countries around the world. Those who are left hopeless, jobless, and without assets could easily turn against those who are better off. Already, some 30% of Americans have zero or negative wealth. If more people emerge from the current crisis with neither money, nor jobs, nor access to health care, and if these people become desperate and angry, such scenes as the recent escape of prisoners in Italy or the looting that followed Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans in 2005 might become commonplace. If governments have to resort to using paramilitary or military forces to quell, for example, riots or attacks on property, societies could begin to disintegrate. And listen to this. We do not know how the Black Lives Matter movement will evolve, and if it persists, what form it will take. However, indications show it is turning into something broader than race-specific issues. The protests against systemic racism have led to more general calls about economic justice and inclusiveness. The COVID-19 pandemic has made government important again, not just powerful again. I mean, look at those once mighty companies begging for help, but also vital again. Look into the future. Governments will most likely, but with different degrees of intensity, decide that it's in the best interest of society to rewrite some of the rules of the game and permanently increase their role. Youth activism is increasing worldwide, being revolutionized by social media that increases mobilization to an extent that would have been impossible before. It takes many different forms, ranging from non-institutionalized political participation to demonstrations and protests, and addresses issues as diverse as climate change, economic reforms, gender equality, and LGBTQ rights. The young generation is firmly at the vanguard of social change. There is little doubt that it will be a catalyst for change and a source of critical momentum for the Great Reset.
People. But GLSEN is doing more than just that, more than just expanding the boundaries of supporting and protecting the LGBTQ+ community. GLSEN is also telling the world that these boundaries that we've put in place have created a faulty sense of safety that we must dismantle.
They're not hiding anything. They expect riots and protests. This is a part of their plan. Again, that's why if you watch my videos about preparing for the collapse, this is what the preparations are for. In your understanding, please hold on to this. Understand that things will not go back to normal. They know things will not go back to normal. They are planning for change. You will see people, celebrities, saying things like they don't want things to go back to normal. Normal wasn't any good. They are playing games with their followers' mind. This is actually an endorsement of the Great Reset, the New World Order. Don't align yourself with that mentality. They are producing social unrest and protests so that they move the public into accepting this New World Order. They already know and expect chaos and unrest, and they will use this chaos to create a new social contract. The unknowing public calling for change, protesting, and asking for things not to go back to normal are just being used as tools, being conditioned to expect a new world order. Now, as we keep reading, in reference to the geopolitical reset, they are even talking about a global government. They say, global governance is commonly defined as the process of cooperation among transnational actors aimed at providing responses to global problems. The two notions of global governance and international cooperation are so intertwined that it is nigh on impossible for global governance to flourish in a divided world that is retrenching and fragmenting. Sadly, we are now at this critical juncture. Put bluntly, we live in a world in which nobody is really in charge. Therefore, the concern is that without appropriate global governance, we will become paralyzed in our attempt to address and respond to global challenges, particularly when there is such a strong dissonance between short-term, domestic imperatives and long-term global challenges. This is a major worry, considering that today there is no committee to save the world. So, they are preparing for a world government that has someone in charge, someone with a committee to save the world. This is literally biblical prophecy of the book of Revelation jumping into reality. And with all that they're saying, they have us distracted, paying attention to what exactly?
Listen, tonight we offer the ridiculous tips to get in shape for summer. It's of course called Prancercise. Prancercise is described as a springy, rhythmic way of moving forward, similar to a horse's gait, and ideally
hold on, Anderson.
We need to be awake, not asleep. Let me jump into the next part, which is the technological reset. They have goals of completely digitizing the world and merging humans with computers.
Everything will be digitalized, which can be digitalized.
It's called transhumanism, and as a part of their agenda where we see the mark of the beast implemented. Listen to what they say on their video on the 4th Industrial Revolution.
We are wondering what is happening to the world. Everything is changing.
The very idea of human being some sort of natural concept is really going to change.
Our bodies will be so high-tech we won't be able to really distinguish between what's natural and what's artificial.
You see, they're not hiding their agenda and goals. They are just not publicizing it to the masses. Oh, and in case your denial of this wants to say that maybe it's possible that trustful Joe Biden didn't know about this agenda, just take a look at more of the video. This is Professor Schwab talking in front of an audience. Wait, who's front row? Sitting close to Leonardo DiCaprio. Yeah, that's Joe Biden. You can see he's well aware of the agenda. And for those wanting to place Trump on a pedestal, do you think that the leader of the most powerful country in the world doesn't know about an agenda that the rest of the world knows about? Let's see.
approaching the podium right now, being introduced by Klaus Schwab, who is the head of the World Economic Forum. Again, Donald Trump taking the stage here in Davos.
Congratulations on your 50th year hosting the annual meeting of the World Economic Forum, a truly amazing achievement. It's an honor to address the distinguished members of this organization for the second time as president.
Okay. Oh yeah, he knows very well. It's time you woke up to the world that you live in. Now, in the book, when speaking on the technological reset, they say, in the 4 short years since technological progress has moved impressively fast, AI is now all around us, from drones and voice recognition to virtual assistants and translation software. Our mobile devices have become a permanent, integral part of our personal and professional lives, helping us on many different fronts, anticipating our needs, listening to us, and locating us, even when not asked to do so. Automation and robots are reconfiguring the way businesses operate with staggering speed and returns on scale inconceivable just a few years ago. With the pandemic, the digital transformation that so many analysts have been referring to for years, without being exactly sure what it meant, has found its catalyst. During the lockdowns, many consumers previously reluctant to rely too heavily on digital applications and services were forced to change their habits almost overnight. Watching movies online instead of going to the cinema, having meals delivered instead of going out to the restaurants, talking to friends remotely instead of meeting them in the flesh, talking to colleagues on a screen instead of chit-chatting at the coffee machine, exercising online instead of going to the gym, and so on. Thus, almost instantly, most things become e-things, e-learning, e-commerce, e-gaming, e-books, e-attendance. To sum up, the speed and breadth of the fourth industrial revolution have been and continue to be remarkable. This chapter argues that the pandemic will accelerate innovation even more, catalyzing technological changes already underway and turbocharging any digital business of the digital dimension of any business. This transition towards more digital of everything in our professional and personal lives will also be supported and accelerated by regulators. As the coronavirus crisis recedes and people start returning to the workplace, this corporate move will be towards greater surveillance. For better or for worse, companies will be watching and sometimes recording what their workforce does. The trend could take many different forms, from measuring body temperatures with thermal cameras to monitoring via an app how employees comply with social distancing. This is bound to raise profound regulatory and privacy issues, which many companies will reject by arguing that unless they increase digital surveillance, they won't be able to reopen and function without risking new infections. And being, in some cases, liable, they will cite health and safety as the justification for increased surveillance. It is true that in the post-pandemic era, personal health and well-being will become a much greater priority for society, which is why the genie of tech surveillance will not be put back into the bottle. But it is for those who govern and each of us personally to control and harness the benefits of technology without sacrificing our individual and collective values and freedoms. They are very clearly saying that they will be controlling us through our technology, and we will have to make a choice to accept it in order to take part in their businesses and their economy. In that Industrial Revolution video, they even allude to humans merging with machines.
The very idea of human being some sort of natural concept is really going to change.
Our bodies will be so high-tech, we won't be able to really distinguish between what's natural and what's artificial.
So they have spoken about a world government, a world currency, a world leader, and now the mark of the beast. Yeah, I think all believers should be paying attention. The book concluded that widespread social protests that took place in June 2020 reflect the urgent necessity to embark on the Great Reset. By connecting an epidemiological risk, COVID-19, with a societal risk, protest, they made it clear that in today's world, it is the systemic connectivity between risk, issues, challenges, and also opportunities that matters and determines the future. As economies restart, there is an opportunity to embed greater societal equality and sustainability into the recovery, accelerating rather than delaying progress towards the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals. and unleashing a new era of prosperity. We are now at a crossroads. One path will take us to a better world, more inclusive, more equitable, and more respectful of Mother Nature. The other will take us to a world that resembles the one we just left behind, but worse and constantly dogged by nasty surprises. We must therefore get it right. The looming challenges could be more consequential than we have until now chosen to imagine, but our capacity to reset could also be greater than we had previously dared to hope. was talking with my family member while making this video and explained these findings to her. And she basically was saying that she did not need to know these things, and her way of preparing is different than mine, and that's okay for her. And really, to be clear, her way of preparing is listening to mainstream media and talk radio and being ignorant to main agendas like this. She felt that it's okay to be ignorant to the world agenda because there is nothing we can do about it. And while I agree that there is nothing we can do about it, I vehemently disagree that her preparation should be different and that she doesn't need to know. In regards to her physical preparations, absolutely. But this is about mental preparation. You need to know what's happening around you, aware of your surroundings. Because their plan is to move us off our ignorance, to catch us off guard and desperate for them to provide the solutions. They want to catch us while we are sleeping. And they'll know you don't have to dig deep into all these subjects. Father is guiding ministries like this to gather the information for you, to at least give you a preview, so if you want to dig deeper, you know where to go. But at least you know what's actually happening. We should never be ignorant to the wiles and schemes of the devil. If he wanted us to know what he was doing, this information will be programmed into everyone the same way they program everything else. We cannot be ignorant to Satan's devices. Like the Apostle Paul told us in 2 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 11, lest Satan should take advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices. Being ignorant to Satan's schemes and plots and devices gives him more chances to take advantage of us, and none of us should want that. Now this is what we are actually directed to do. In 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verses 1 through 11, the Apostle Paul tells us, but concerning the times and the seasons, brethren, you have no need that I should write to you. For you yourselves know perfectly that the day of Yahweh so comes as a thief in the night. For when they say peace and safety, then sudden destruction comes upon them, as labor pains upon a pregnant woman, and they shall not escape. But you, brethren, are not in darkness, so that this day should overtake you as a thief. You are all sons of light and sons of the day. We are not of the night, nor of darkness. Therefore, let us not sleep as others do, but let us watch and be sober. For those who sleep, sleep at night, and those who get drunk are drunk at night. But let us who are of the day be sober, putting on the breastplate of faith and love, and as a helmet the hope of salvation. For Elohim did not appoint us to wrath, but to obtain salvation through our Master Yahshua Messiah, who died for us, that whether we wake or sleep, we should live together with him. Therefore, comfort each other and edify one another, just as you also are doing. You see, he wants us watching and living with a sound, sober mind. He does not want us to be asleep, but awake. Forget about the worldly being woke. I really don't like the way that everyone uses it, because a majority of people that I hear use that term are actually very much asleep. But anyway, he wants us to watch and be sober so that Yah's day does not come upon us unexpectedly like a thief in the night. So if you're turning off your mind and staying asleep, being ignorant to Satan's devices, you may miss him, and he does not want you to do this. So yes, I've exposed you to more of the world agenda that is about directing us to a satanic world system where Satan will declare himself God. Yes, it's very obvious that this world is pressing forward and the Great Reset is coming. As a believer, there's absolutely no reason to fear, because your decision to rest in our Savior has given you the victory already. Continue to share the gospel and prepare for him. Be sober and of sound mind, watchful and awake, because the day of Yah is near. Be blessed.
I'd like to share a revelation that I've had during my time here. It came to me when I tried to classify your species. I realized that you're not actually mammals. Every mammal on this planet instinctively develops a natural equilibrium with the surrounding environment, but you humans do not. You move to an area and you multiply, and multiply until every natural resource is consumed. And the only way you can survive is to spread to another area. There is another organism on this planet that follows the same pattern. Do you know what it is? A virus. Human beings are a disease, a cancer of this planet. You are a plague, and we are the cure.
You